So hey guys, happy Wednesday. We had a massive news day last week, which means we had the full reveal for not only Halloween Horror Nights Orlando, but Howl-O-Scream Orlando and Howl-O-Scream Tampa as well. So that means we have a lot to talk about. Let's get to it. So you might be able to guess which house announcement I'm most excited for based on this shirt, but yes, this past week we finally had the full reveal for Halloween Horror Nights Orlando. So for this video, I'm going to focus on Halloween Horror Nights Orlando, and we will talk about Howl-O-Scream in another video because there's just too much to discuss to put it all in one. So let's talk about all the house announcements and all the scare zone news we got from the full reveal. Plus, let's talk about some of the scare zone construction, which continues to spoil things around the park. So it looks like the latest rumor map from Horror Night Nightmares was accurate. Pretty much everything announced matched with what we were expecting. So let's start with some of the most anticipated houses, which include Welcome to Scary Horror in the Heartland. So on the website it says the town placed a sign at the entrance to Cary, Ohio saying it's a nice place to live. Unfortunately, nobody lives here very long. No one escapes from Cary, where bad things just happen and new terrors rain down year after year. So if you've been around for a while, you know I did a history video on Cary, Ohio, where you can check it out here. That is the fact. Nothing good comes out of Cary, Ohio. There is just bad thing after bad thing that comes from the fictionalized town of Cary, Ohio. There's a real Cary, Ohio, but for the purposes of Halloween Horror Nights, we have our own Cary/Scary, Ohio, and this house is going to take us through the greatest hits of Cary, Ohio. We could see the spawning, Dead End, Legendary Truth, the Wyandotte Estate was in Cary. So there's a lot of potential for various best of features from Halloween Horror Nights past in this house. The Hive, HR Blood and Guts, Leave It to Cleaver, that was one of my personal favorites. I just can't wait to see what all is in this house and how many favorite scenes we can live through a second time. So as we know from the spoiled facade, this one is located in Tent 3 in the back of the park. Tent 3 has not always been the best location, but I have faith that A&D will give this house a lot of love because it is an anniversary house and represents some of their best originals over time. So I expect this one to be one of my most anticipated. Next up, my other most anticipated, with my Legendary Truth the Collective shirt on display, we have Case Files Unearthed Legendary Truth. Follow the trail of a private eye as an investigation into the supernatural leads you into a dark world of ghouls and terrifying creatures. Who's that private investigator? Well, I'm pretty sure it's going to be good old Boris Schuster from the 2008 Legendary Truth lore. So if you want some more history on Legendary Truth, I covered all the in-park activities in a video last year, but if you want more of the overall history of the lore, check out the RIP Tour podcast. I just recorded a Legendary Truth episode with them, and they took the time to go through a broad overview of all of the lore that went into Legendary Truth over the years, and then we discussed the in-park. That link will be down below. Make sure to check that out to get kind of a crash course in the lore. But we know from 2008 that Boris Schuster was the private investigator who looked into Dr. Mary Agana and the disappearance of her patient. So we know a lot about Dr. Mary Agana, who turned into Bloody Mary, but we didn't know all that much about Boris and what happened to him after these events. So I'm hoping this house goes through possibly a little bit with what happened the night that he found Dr. Mary Agana and she transitioned into Bloody Mary, but then also hopefully that we go through time and see some of the other cases that Boris investigated other than Dr. Mary Agana, because I'm sure he did a lot. If he was in the Legendary Truth and started the collective, I have a feeling that he investigated a lot of different creatures. And during that podcast that I was in with Ash and Gary earlier today, Ash had the idea that maybe we'll be investigating different creatures from different legions, and I love that idea. I think that would be a really cool concept for the house. If you are part of the Horror Unearthed and Legendary Truth legions, let me know which legion you are a part of. I was a Morphin, and I hope to see Morphins represented in this house. I am also hopeful that Possibly we'll get some sort of game experience to go along with the house. I don't know if that will be on the website or something in park. Obviously I would love to have something in park, but with how busy the parks are these days, I just don't know if that's a reasonable expectation. However, something online at least would be really fun to tie in the investigation and give the fans a little more lore to play with rather than just what we experience in the house. So fingers crossed for that. So this house will be located in Shrek. This is the house that replaced Billie Eilish when the Billie Eilish house got scrapped last year. This is the house that replaced it. I saw some concern that this might be an overlay, and no. The Billie Eilish house was torn down. Whatever they had built has been scrapped. This is from scratch. So this will be just as stellar of a house as you would expect. Moving on to a tent house, and that is the Wicked Growth Realm of the Pumpkin. This is the one I was talking about last week that will have the pumpkin tunnel that I'm so excited to experience in person. I obviously love traditional Halloween. I love pumpkins. Anything to do with that feel of classic Halloween, I love. So I cannot wait to see this house. The description says, an evil rot has taken root in the land. It's time once again for the rise of the pumpkin lord who grows Halloween like a malignant vine. His minions are scouring the countryside, collecting unwilling sacrifices in order to summon the pumpkin lord. So this one kind of feels like Twisted Tradition Scare Zone we had a few years ago, which was in Cary, Ohio, the township of Cary, Ohio to be exact. I don't know how this house is going to be set up, but it has that same feel to it, and I am all about that aesthetic. Personally, I'm really hoping this one lives up to something like Scarecrow with very claustrophobic hallways, dark, scary, and classic Halloween. It does say in the description, from the cemetery to the forest, there's no breaking free of the tenacious vines of the merciless pumpkin lord. So obviously it sounds like we're gonna get a forest scene and a cemetery scene, and that just is classic Halloween to me, and I cannot wait to see it. So moving on to the next tent house, and that is Puppet Theater Captive Audience. So this is the one that we knew was happening but hadn't been officially announced for 2021 yet, and now we have it. Open Scene, a creepy abandoned old theater from early 1900s San Francisco. A puppeteer and a ballet troupe have been trapped there ever since, and they'd kill for an audience. Whether you're a puppet or a patron, that's your cue to scream. Okay. I think this one has great potential to be an amazing house. Puppets and marionettes and that kind of doll creature is just naturally very creepy on their own. So turn it into a full house on that theme, and I think it's going to be very effective to bring the scares. I can't wait to see the creative ways they build the sets for the theater. And I can only imagine the different scenes that they take us through to give us that 1900s theater feel. This one's up there on my most anticipated because it is an original and something different that we haven't seen before. But with Wicked Growth and Scary Ohio and the Legendary Truth House and the Icons House, it just has a lot of competition for my most anticipated this year, but it is up there. It is in the top half. Continuing on the originals train, we have Revenge of the Tooth Fairy. Some people already saw this house in 2020 as it was one of the houses that opened with HHN Light, but I was not one of those people, so I am excited to see this one. I've watched the video on YouTube. I already know the facade is amazing. One of the most original facades I've seen them do. I cannot wait to see it in person. Here's the description. You're about to discover the sinister reality behind the seemingly innocent childhood tradition. All children must give up their baby teeth to the goblin-esque tooth fairies or pay a gruesome price. It's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Obviously we know these aren't the sweet little pixie tooth fairies that we envision when we hear the tooth fairy story as a child. These are terrifying tooth fairies, and I believe some people aren't as willing to give up their teeth, and the tooth fairies are gonna take them no matter what. I am excited to see the fairies in person, excited to see this house and that facade for my own eyes. Another original, it's in my anticipated list. This house was trying to be at the event for a while. It was originally supposed to be at the 2019 event and it got scrapped. So it's the little house that could, and it's finally gonna have its glory at Halloween Horror Nights 30 2021. So that's the end of the house announcements. I am thrilled to have a breakdown of 6 originals, 4 IPs. For those who are kind of new to this discussion, IPs are intellectual properties. So those are movies, TV shows, anything that's an existing property that Universal licenses to use at the event. So that would be Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Netflix's Hill House. Those are IPs. The originals are content that A&D create themselves, including The Tooth Fairy, Wicked Growth. Personally, I see The Bride Lives house as an original because although it is an IP, it's an original take on the IP. So for my purposes, I see 7 originals, 3 IPs, and that is glorious. Back in the day, the event used to be mostly original and maybe 1 or 2 IPs here or there. Back in the day, we only had 7 or 8 houses. So to have 7 originals, that's almost taking it back to the old days where we had 7 originals and 1 IP. So I am thrilled with that. I hope that's the ratio we keep moving forward because I know IPs bring people to the event, but the originals are what turn people into lifelong fans like myself. Love the lore and history and original stories that are created, and that's what separates Halloween Horror Nights from some of the other events. So with that, let's transition over to discussing scare zones. There were no surprises here. They fit exactly with the rumors that were swirling. However, we do have official names now. So let's start with New York, which is Seek and Destroy. A ruthless alien cyber regime led by the controller has taken over New York, turning humans into fuel. Succumb or be destroyed. I was expecting a little more dystopian. We've got an alien cyber regime, so it's still Big Brother, not as dystopian, more sci-fi. I'm here for it. In San Francisco, we have Crypt TV. Step inside Crypt TV, a dark universe of monsters that reside in the same reality. On your screen, in your pockets, and now San Francisco. So we've talked about Crypt TV before. They have the stages matching the various shorts on YouTube. I still need to do my homework and watch those shorts. I like the stages, they look creative. I am open to seeing these characters work their magic, scaring people in the crowds. Now, something not listed on here, but that we've seen appear in the park this week is a Chucky set. So nothing officially announced here. From what I'm hearing, this is going to be more of a photo op. I'm not sure if they're going to have puppeteers actually playing Chucky in this zone like we had in the previous scare zone. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a full-fledged scare zone. Sounds like it's just promoting the new Chucky series on Sci-Fi. We just can't get rid of Chucky, y'all. He'll just be part of the event whether we like it or not. He'll just always be there. In Central Park, we have Gorewood Forest. 16 years after the gory sacrifices of Terra Cruentus, the heartless Terra Queen is back. Evil is in her nature. Obviously, according to the lore, the Terra Queen was supposed to return after 15 years, but clearly she saw what was happening in 2020 and was like, I'm gonna stay in hibernation 1 more year. And so the Terra Queen is back for the 16th year, and she's back for more sacrifices. And I hear there's even going to be a Terra Queen little stage show there by Mel's. I hope so. I would love to see the Terra Queen in her glory, back with Eelmouth, doing blood sacrifices, just reigning over Gorewood Forest and Terra Cruentus, and having her moment that I wish she had as the icon of the entire event. But that's a story for another day, so I'm glad she at least got this zone, and I'm ready to revisit the lore of 2005 in this scare zone. That brings us to Hollywood, which is my most anticipated zone. It is Lights, Camera, Haction, Eddie's Revenge. So back in 2009, I believe, there was a scare zone called Lights, Camera, Haction. So this is paying tribute to that zone from 2009, but this time Eddie's crashing in the zone. Get ready for the feel-bad movie of the year. Eddie Schmidt, Jack the Clown's brother, is filming a horror film and the monsters are real. So in one of my recent videos, I said this zone was my most anticipated, and if what I was hearing was true, that 30 Years, 30 Fears scare zone wouldn't be the only anniversary zone. And as we now know from construction, the rumors were true. Eddie's zone is also an anniversary zone, and we see Vamp 55, Invasion, Bless, Treeks and Foons, and then a mystery extra stage that I haven't figured out what it is yet. Do you guys know what it is? Little birdies had told me that Vamp 55 and Invasion were returning in this zone, and I was just crossing my fingers that it was true, because if you guys know me, you know that my 3 favorite scare zones were 7 in 2011, Vamp 55, and Invasion. So to have Vamp 55 and Invasion back together, I am stoked. Obviously, any aliens that are part of this cast have a lot to live up to because my aliens were amazing in 2017 and we had so much fun interacting with each other. So my only hope is this current wave of aliens that invade are just as hilarious and wonderful to interact with because they've got big pinky fingers to fill. So thrilled to at least have a backdrop to take pictures with again and just relive all my favorite memories of those zones. So our final zone is 30 years, 30 fears, and that's in the Shrek area. The monsters you've most dreaded from past Halloween Horror Nights have taken over the street. They're back and your history. So this one I'm hearing is more general, all through time favorite scare zone characters. So it's still scare zone characters from what I can gather, not house characters, not icons. I can't wait to see who all is included in this cast. We also found out that we are getting 2 shows, and I'm gonna go through these quickly. We have Marathon of Mayhem Carnage Factory. There's no manufacturing the screams as a terrifying show comes to life in the Universal Studios Lagoon. It's a fear factory. So I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we're essentially getting a Jack show on the water. The bad news is that I don't think the other show, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, is the rumored Jack show that we heard we might be getting. I don't think, and I hope I'm wrong on this, but I don't think the show in Fear Factor is a Jack show. It might have a Jack theme, it might be his carnies, it might be the carnival aspect to it, but I don't think Jack is the host of that show, unfortunately. And maybe I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong, but I think Jack is gonna be the host of Marathon of Mayhem. I'm just always sad if we don't get the opportunity to have Jack in person ad-libbing because there's nothing better. So over in Fear Factor, we have Halloween Nightmare Fuel. A new show is igniting Halloween Horror Nights featuring fire, pyro, and aerial performers. So I mean, you could argue that the previous Jack show had fire, pyro, and aerial dancers, so it had those things. I just don't know what to make of this one yet. Time will tell. Okay guys, so that's gonna end today's video about Halloween Horror Nights. In next week's video, I will talk about any other rumors that come out from Halloween Horror Nights and discuss the full reveals for Hallow Scream because there's just clearly too much information just from Halloween Horror Nights to try to put both in one video. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to see next week's news video and all of the vlogs from the events starting in September, and I will see you guys again next week. Stay safe, stay spoopy, and I'll see you then. Bye.